where we focus on a film. I'm Josh, this is Simply Cinema, and today we're going to be talking about the Dune Mini-series, which was released in the year 2000, which is an adaptation of Frank Herbert's novel by the same name, which is the second adaptation of the movie following David Lynch's version. And then we got Dune for Denis Villeneuve's movie from the modern retelling. So let me know in the comments below if you even heard of this miniseries, if you watch it, if you enjoy it, or if it just doesn't end up working out at the end of the day. So just going right into it, I just really enjoy the story for what it is. I read the novel a couple of years ago and I'm a big fan of it. So going into this, I kind of have high expectations even for what is going after, but I did end up enjoying the general gist of it, going into a positive, just the aspects for the cinematography. It's using CGI a lot more often, which doesn't give it a great look overall, but the different technical details that they include, interpreting the story in its own means. Obviously the vehicles are going to look different in everyone's different mind, and what they do with the character, who they cast, feels a little miscast for some people. Of course, I'm kind of adjusted to the use of what we've gotten from the modern retelling, but even in the older David Lynch's adaptation, I do enjoy the cast generally for what they do, despite the costume choices that they have that are a little bit sketchy for what they're really going for this telling of this beloved classic. And I just really enjoy the characters they choose out of this mix, having Princess Irulan as well as the Emperor making more of a prominent appearance, not only from the older David Lynch's, which was a shortened version of this story, but also from the modern retelling. We're not getting them until part 2, but if you know the story, you're really getting Princess Irulan and the Emperor a lot more even near the beginning, and their inclusion of those characters is really fitting for what this story has to offer. It's not necessarily a needed gesture, even though it's from the book itself, to be put in there. That is a fault on the modern retelling, but generally for this story, it really benefits the story that it's going for, including things that the modern version doesn't, and including ideas that really follows gesture and passion to retelling the modern novel that it is, and just going about the specific details. I really enjoy the flow of the story, the aspects to what they have to offer. The costumes themselves, they're not the greatest for what they are, but for TV, it's something a little better than I would have expected. Personally, I don't always expect a high budget for these type of films, especially split into 3 different parts, but they did a fair job with them. And Paul Atreides and Duke Leto, I was kind of surprised they chose brown-haired people for those roles. What they had to offer was still sufficient for the characters. They weren't groundbreaking performances, but they still satisfied the character that was fulfilling that role and delivered on the ideas that this story was sinking into. And just the general gist of the atmosphere was really flamboyant. And unfortunately, going into some of the negatives, of course, this is a kind of outdated film in some ways, just from the technological ideas. The CGI doesn't look great all of the time, and even for the Fremen, you're getting the blue and blue eyes as blue lights on their faces that must have been put in after the fact. And while that is a fine choice most of the time, there are certain scenes where it's just absent from their eyes, and I can generally follow who the characters are and what the Fremen are based on how you're following the context of the story. But unfortunately, it still throws off the balance of what I have to think about when the blue eyes are absent from those specific Fremen that they need to, especially when you have moving characters. It doesn't always balance out, or if they're turning their head to the side, it's not always evident in each and every scene. And there's some scenes where it's extensive and it could have been included it a lot more evident, but unfortunately for the computer designing, inserting the blue on their eyes for the framing that they have, it just really is a feature that is missing from it most of the time. And while it still doesn't detract too much from the story, it is very evident when it is missing, and so it's something that really bothers me at certain times. And I do think some of the CGI, for what the use they do with that, you can see the evident layers at different scenes that unfortunately detract from the personal expanse of the story, what you're getting from the visuals, the scene that are really good for its time, and I can still appreciate it for today's standards for what they're going after for when this was released, but unfortunately it still does not have that grand appeal that we get with the modern retelling, that you're forced to compare almost because there is a comparison we have to share now. But I still don't detract that too much from my score personally, because I still appreciate what they do, the technical achievement for the time, as it's still getting experimental with how much CGI they're having used, and just the general gist of the story, how it flows. It has a few hiccups here and there. It is a bit long, or at least for watching it all the way straight through. It is broken up into 3 different sections, about an hour and 40 minutes each, so you can do with it with what you want. But for me personally, having watched roughly 5 hours straight through, it was a bit of a heavy watch, but I still enjoy the story. I still enjoy all the ideas and details that this story offers, and you still see the passion that's driven into this story, even if they couldn't do all out for the time that this was released. For its time, it does succeed in delivering on a story, even if it doesn't go all the way that you can really expect from the standards of today. So that's just all for my review, and I have to rate it simply 6.5 out of 10. So that's just my review on Dune Mini-series. Let me know down in the comments below if you have seen the Dune Mini-series. Do you like it, or does it fail to meet your expectation of what this story has to offer? And that's just all. Make sure to like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure to check out videos on the end scene now.